What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Comic Breakdown. In this video, we are finally getting something that I have been wanting for like 2 freaking years now. This is Blade, Vampire Nation, issue number 1 one-shot, which I'm a little bit disappointed about. I was really hoping that this was going to be a series. When I saw that it was one-shot, I was so disappointed, because this is a story that I really want carried on. Now, it will be carrying on in All-Out AVENGERS, which is something that we haven't been covering, but I guess we're gonna have to start reading it just to see how much Blade is actually involved in all of that. I know he is part of the team, but how much of the Vampire Nation stuff is really gonna be intertwined with All Out Avengers? Now, one of the last things we had seen with Blade is that he was the sheriff of the Vampire Nation, with the vampires creating their own nation in Chernobyl, a place where human beings cannot really live, but vampires can thrive. Dracula is trying to bring the Vampire Nation to more of a NATO state. They are trying to be recognized by the world powers. To be able to do this, they've had to change a lot of the things they do. No longer hunting humans like they once did, but one of the stipulations was that Blade was here to be the sheriff. He was here to keep vampires in check, to make sure they don't step out of line. This means that Blade has to work hand in hand with not only Dracula, but all vampires. Now, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel, make sure you like this video, and with that being said, let's dive into this breakdown. Alright guys, so our story, it is starting us over the Vampire Nation. We have a Black Hawk helicopter making its way over the city. The radiation levels currently are safe enough for them to get in and get out, with the soldiers dropping out of it. This elite team makes their way through the building, going to hatch 32. They break it open and they pull the coffin out, with the vampires knowing that they are there now descending down on them. Our soldiers make their way to the rooftop in a mad dash to get to the sunlight, the vampires wearing suits that will protect them. They realize that their mission is compromised. The helicopter has been shot down, but they are able to open up the coffin. In doing so, we see an individual inside that is burned alive. This individual is Corvus. With the mission being accomplished, unable to escape, the last surviving soldier takes his gun, puts it up to his head, and he pulls the trigger. And then the news goes out. Corvus, a member of the Vampiric Council, has been assassinated. That is where we pick up with Blade and Dracula, as he sits here and gives a kind of lesson to Blade. Blade's not really here to hear anything he has to say, but Dracula is letting him know that instability is the enemy of all of them. They have already gotten the news reports about this assassination. What they don't report is that Corvus was traveling in secret. He was traveling under a false name. It was only at the last minute that the Chancellor Corvus was going to go in the stead of Dracula, which means this assassination attempt, it was meant to take out Dracula. There is a revolution afoot inside of the Vampire Kingdom, with Blade saying, why not just round up all of your enemies and take them out like the good old days? But Dracula is trying to build a nation that people want to live in, or vampires want to live in. They cannot do this if he goes around executing people just because he thinks that they are guilty. So as sheriff of the Vampire Nation, Dracula is leaving it up to Blade to figure out who did this assassination attempt, find the proof that Dracula needs to take down his enemies. And so starting his investigation, he goes and he meets up with the mayor. This is the office that put out the report that these mercenaries, they were human, having the corpses down in the morgue. Blade is allowed to go inspect them anytime he chooses. The problem is, none of them were taken alive, which means they cannot get any answers to any of the questions that they might have. But what he also learns is that these mercenaries, they took their own life. This is not something that is typical of a mercenary. They do this job to get paid, not to sacrifice themselves to the slaughter, but giving him their surveillance photos. This is what gives him his next clue. clue, learning that this city is a little bit different than any other place, because being on the edge of the exclusion zone, this is where the radiation is tolerable. It is the only city in all the Vampire Nation which also houses humans. In fact, they recruit humans, and one of three things is going to happen to them when they get here. Either they are given jobs to do the usual day-to-day cleaning, janitors, so on and so forth, or they are turned in order to replace the recently deceased vampire population. And then finally, the third option, some are chosen to live rent-free, live an easy and luxury life. That is, until they are called upon to fulfill their end of the deal, to provide the richer vampires with a small taste of what it means to at least be a vampire. These people are chosen to eventually be hunted down. And so as Blade leaves, he begins looking over all of the paperwork, and what he finds is that there were 5 mercenaries, not 4 like they had claimed, which means one of them are missing, either taken prisoner or able to escape. Recognizing that he has a tail on him, this tail is the last mercenary, being able to blend in as a regular human being among all the vampires. She has been following him ever since he got into town. Giving her name, she is Delphina. Her family owns the security company that arranged the operation for the hit on Dracula, or at least what they thought was Dracula. But with such a high value target, this is what they call a clean up. If they are compromised, if they are overwhelmed, their families will pay the price. The families of every mercenary were held captive as hostages. This is a guarantee against any kind of defection or failure. They either return having achieved the objective, or they don't return at all. This is why the mercenary shot himself in the head. But her being who she is, her family owning the security company, they had no leverage over her, which means she could escape and not have any consequences. She quickly learned to improvise. Changing her clothes, she looks nothing more than a human janitor. She was easily able to disappear into the crowd of humans that are here for service work, willing to give Blade all the information that he needs. The first question is, who paid you? Getting all of this information, this is when we jump over to more or less a therapy AA kind of meeting. These are people that have recently been turned into vampires, and they're not dealing with it well. This is where we have Contessa, as all of these newly formed vampires are complaining. She says that all of you don't understand what it means to be a vampire, to hunt every night, to have the hunger, to be a free-range vampire. The truth is, this vampire nation has clipped their wings. And once upon a time, they used to be the apex predator, one vampire per town, but now there are so many of them, now all in one spot. They are no longer the apex predator that they once were. They are docile house cats. That is when Blade shows up. While Contessa tries to say that she doesn't want to talk to him, she doesn't have much of an option. He comes here on behalf of Dracula, which means talking to him is not optional. As they go back to her place, they have a discussion, talking about whoever paid these mercenaries. They paid in crypto. Now, Contessa believed that this was going to cover her tracks. The problem is, when you use crypto, you have to use real money to buy the crypto. And vampires are so used to believing that they are above everybody else. They live for the hunt, the chess match of killing when not getting killed. But they usually get caught up in all of the paperwork stuff. And according to the charter created by the Vampire Kingdom, all Swiss bank accounts owned by vampires are labeled and subject to inspection. All Blade had to do was cross-reference the amount that was paid to the mercenaries in crypto with a bank account of the money going out in the same day. This cross-examination led directly to Contessa. When she calls in her guards to have them take care of Blade, he reveals that he already dispatched them hours ago. Blade had decapitated them, hid their bodies for this very moment. He knows that she is responsible for trying to undermine Dracula's regime. The only question he has is why, and that is because she hates the Vampire Nation. Years earlier, Dracula started this nation, and it was already a failure to begin with. All he has done is filled a dog kennel with wolves, turning wild creatures into pets. This cage wasn't built to protect them. It was built to take whatever power they once had as vampires and give it all to one man. And so with Blade arresting her, taking her into a helicopter, assuming that something is going to happen to her, more than likely Dracula is going to kill her, we pick up later that evening with Blade waking up Dracula, Contessa taken out, the mayor being arrested, as well as some other vampire elite. As the two of them have a conversation, Dracula lets him know that he has done a great job. But what Blade had learned throughout all of this is that on top of them receiving a payment, they also received a tip on where their target would be staying. They had the exact crypt number. This information was leaked to them, and Blade believes that it was Dracula who was responsible. Dracula did believe that Blade was just going to follow the breadcrumbs that led to Contessa. He didn't think Blade was going to figure out that Dracula himself was involved in part of this. But what Blade wants to know is why. The one thing that Blade and Dracula have in common is that they both want this nation to be successful. So why cut the throat of your own council? This is when Dracula reveals that Corvus was never part of the real council, that the vampire council is just for the kids and the tourists. Also, to reassure the people that his power is not absolute, he used Corvus as bait to draw out the wolves. Opening up a door, this is where it reveals the true council. He has been doing this for 500 years. He has had access to the best council and power brokers in all of history, exposing the true council, what he calls his kitchen cabinet. This is where the true power lies, and it is this table that they dine from, and that will be the end of this issue. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Like I said, it's very unfortunate that this is a one-shot. They should very much make this a solo series with Blade and Dracula. It has so much promise, it has so much potential, but it's only a one-shot, and they're saying Blade's adventures continue inside of All-Out Avengers. And from what I've seen from the first couple of issues, it doesn't seem to be dealing with the Vampire Nation on a grand scale, not like this issue is, which is very disappointing. Now, maybe moving forward, All Out Avengers is going to do more heavily with vampirism and everything going on with that. But between this and Moon Knight, what we are seeing is a play for power, those trying to dismantle Dracula from his throne. Now, I haven't seen solicitations for the future, so I'm not sure if there is going to be a solo series later on down the line, but it took, what, 2 years for this to come out? And it has, like I said, it's got so much potential. This is such a good story, and it could be so phenomenal, but it doesn't seem like they fully want to commit to a Blade solo series focusing on him and the Vampire Nation. Nonetheless, I thoroughly enjoyed this. I have been waiting so long for a story like this. I am crossing my fingers, and I am hoping that All Out Avengers is going to be really going down this road. And if they don't, I pray that we have some kind of story to continue this on. But let me know what you guys think. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know your theories. If you would like to support the channel, you can always do so by joining the channel membership, much like Patreon having 5 different tiers, from $1 to $50, from loyalty badges to getting free comics every single month. Not only would you be helping out the channel tremendously, you would be getting tons of perks in the process. Now, if you can't do that, do me a favor, subscribe to the channel, like this video, hit that notification bell, and with that being said, until the next breakdown.